this hour, so make sure you're not talking during my lesson. All right, so everybody, we're going to focus in on linear functions. We did that last time, but we only did slope. Slope is rate of change, correct? Last time we learned to find the rate of change, you subtract the y values divided by subtract the x values. Today we're going to do the same thing, but we're just going to, we didn't really last time go over the y-intercept, the plus b part, so now we're just putting it all together, basically. So I would in my notes, just because you never know that if they use this word and you don't want to be confused on what they're asking, write in your notes rate initial value form. So rate initial value form is just y equals mx plus b, but they write it out in words what you're looking at. So if this were me and they said, what is the rate initial value form of a linear function? I would write y equals mx plus b, and then I would just point and in words say what everything is. So if you guys look at mine right here, my example, I would say m is the slope. Isn't that true? We all know that, right? M is slope, yeah? Everyone, yes or no? You got to talk to me today so we can go quick. Okay, so m is the slope, which is also called the rate of change. Because it's linear, it'll be a constant rate of change. B is the y-intercept. This is also called the initial value. Here's why. The y-intercept is where we initially start. It's when x equals 0. That's why they call it the initial value. It's when x equals 0. So that will be where it crosses the y-axis. And then we would just say with rate initial value form, see, rate initial value. It makes sense of why they call it rate initial value form. Then we actually just point, I mean, it's kind of a hoop jump. We point here and say this is the dependent variable. Y is dependent on what we plug in for x. X is the independent variable. So this is called rate initial value form. It's just y equals mx plus b. So now let's look at our first example. You would not need to write this first example down if you'll just look up here. I'm going to scroll up. Does anyone need more time on this? Okay, so look at this table of values with me. It says, right here is a table of values, and it says it's showing a linear pattern where y is increasing by 3. Okay, so we wouldn't have even had to be told that. If I said to you, what type of graph is this? You'd say it's linear. Isn't there a constant rate of change? Let's look at our y's. 10 minus 7 is 3. 7 minus 4 is 3. 4 minus 1 is 3. 1 minus negative 2 is 3. Do you guys see what I'm saying? Remember, to figure out what you're adding forward, we subtract backwards. So because we're adding 3 each time, it's considered linear. That's the rate of change. That's the slope. So if we were writing the equation, we would say y equals 3x. And then we need our y-intercept, our plus b part. The y-intercept is when x equals 0. It should slap you in the face. Isn't that when x equals 0? So what do we get out at 0? Plus 1. Yep, very good. That would be our equation. Super easy stuff. All right, so then this is also, we just went over the rate initial value form. All right, so let's practice another one. One more. Write an equation for the linear pattern described in the table. So once again, what's happening here? Look at your y values. It's subtracting 2. Is that true? Subtracting 2. Subtracting 2. Subtracting 2. Yes or no, everyone? Do you agree with Dylan up here? All right, I agree. So we would say y equals negative 2x plus b. Is the plus b listed here? Yep, it's when x equals 0. So we get positive 5. Boom, there's the answer. Do you need another example like that, or you're like, we get the picture here? Okay, moving on then. So if they give you this and say, well, let's even move on past that. We'll get to more examples like that later. It's kind of repetitive. All right, now also in your notes, write down slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is just y equals mx plus b without stating what everything is. So remember, the other format was just writing what I write it as y equals mx plus b, and then I go describe what everything is. I say the y value is the dependent variable. M is the slope, which is also the rate of change. X, but you don't have to do that with slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is just saying, boom, there's the slope. Boom, there's the y-intercept. And it's just super straightforward. So just in case they use the word, write your answer in slope-intercept form, you're not like, wait, what does that mean? So looking at this problem right here, says the graph of the function f of x equals 4x minus 2 is a line in the graphical representation of this function. What is the slope? What is the y-intercept? So this is super straightforward. What is our slope? So I write m equals 4. They use variable m, but it doesn't matter which variable you use. That's just what we use, like the common way of writing slope. So m equals 4, and the y-intercept is -2. But listen to what I'm saying. They want you to write y-intercepts as xy points. So you'd say my x value is 0, my y value is -2. What are your questions on this? Does that feel easy? It is easy, I agree. All right, so look at this one right here. It says the graph of a function is aligned with a slope of 5 and a y-intercept of the point 0, -6. What is the function? So once again, y equals 5x minus 6. Now, these have all been easy so far because they gave you the y-intercept. If they didn't give you an x value of 0, you don't have the y-intercept. You'd have to use algebra and math to go figure it out. We'll see examples like that later. It's not super hard, though. It just takes one extra step. All right, so let's write the equation of the blue line. Like I said, you're probably going to get more out of just watching some of these examples. So write the equation of the blue line. So I would say to myself, first, I know that lines have y equals mx plus b. I always first find my slope. So I know that I do that by subtracting my y values. So I'm going to show my work. 3 minus -9 divided by subtract the x values. So that's 0 minus -4.
Pardon the interruption. Could I have Satchel have work for checkout, please?
Sure.
Yep.
All right, so then on top, we're getting 12. On bottom, we're getting 4, so we get 3. What are your questions? Then ask yourself, checking my answer, does it seem like the slope is right? Should the slope be positive? Look at the line. Yes, look at it. From left to right, it's increasing. Yes, everybody. Yes, ma'am. So we can say to ourselves, yes, looking good. So now we're going to say y equals 3x. What's our plus b? The y-intercept, which is? 3. So we'd say plus 3. Boom, there's our equation to our line. Okay, cool. Let's do the black line. Here we go. So we know it's y equals mx plus b. Let's find our slope first. Quickly find the slope. We subtract our y values. So that'd be -5 minus -2. Subtract the x's. 0 minus -10. So it looks like on top I'm getting... Help me out. -3 on bottom, I'm getting 10, right, everyone? So then you'd say y equals -3 tenths x. What's our plus b?
-5.
Yep, -5. What are your questions on writing the equation of a line using a graph? Okay, cool. All right, we get the picture then. I do want to do this one. If they ask you to write the equation of this line, you would say to yourself, okay, we went over this last time. She told us it might be nice to memorize what the slope of a horizontal line is. Sometimes they'll ask you, what is the slope? So let's say they asked you, what's the slope? Horizontal lines have what type of slope? We had to memorize it last time. Isn't it 0? Remember, vertical lines are considered undefined slopes, so our slope is 0. If they say, what's the y-intercept? This one slaps you right in the face. Isn't it over 0, up 7? Now, they ask for the equation. I don't sit and overcomplicate it. I say to myself, with horizontal and vertical lines, it's either y equals or x equals. So then I ask myself, for horizontal lines, which one is it? Is it y equals or x equals? So you're saying it's y equals. Let's make sure. Is y the same value no matter where I put a point? It is. So you're right. It is y equals because y is always the same value. So what is y? Always equal to 7. So that would be our answer for the equation. Now, obviously, y is the same thing as f of x. So you could also say f of x equals 7. That's the same answer as y equals 7. Okay, awesome. Now, I just wanted to show you, domain and range should be pretty easy. I just wanted to show you the format they're writing it in. So if I ask you to do the domain and range in interval notation, then we know that that's the commas and parentheses and brackets. So look at this first blue line here. What's the domain? Negative infinity to infinity. True, everybody. Now, that would be a great answer. I would accept that on the test. On the homework, they're writing it like this. They're still doing these set signs, and then they're putting x. So they're saying the set of x. So they're saying the variable x, and then they're saying, and now here's our answer. They also ask for interval notation, so then they're just putting the interval notation right here. So we would say negative infinity to infinity, and then they're just closing their little brackets. So then last hour they were like, wait, that's set builder notation. I'm like, no, remember, set builder notation, yes, it has the little squiggles. They start out with X, but then they put an inequality. Do you guys see what I'm saying? So do I care on the test if you do the little squiggles? No, but I just didn't want anyone to get to the homework and feel confused. All right, what's the range for a line? Negative infinity to infinity. They want it in interval notation. Okay, let's go look up here at the blue line, if you will. What's the domain on this bad boy? Domain. Yeah, you're right. It's just -2, period, end of story. X is always -2. So you would say the set of X, and then here's our answer. X always equals -2. Now we'll do our range. We'd say the set for Y, and then we do our answer. For the blue line, what's the range from down to up? Negative infinity to infinity. You're right. So now do the red line real quick, just for practice. What is the domain of the red line? Negative infinity to infinity. And then the range for our y's is every time it's up at 3. So y always equals 3. Ding, 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 ding. We're done. All right, that's the end of 2.2.1. Now we're going to do 2.2.2, but it's just the same stuff. Now they're going to say graph a line. So listen to what I'm saying. I would just watch. These are too easy to write down. So if they say to you, graph a line by plotting points, you have to do it that way, or they make me mark you wrong on the test. So let's just practice one by plotting points. They ask you to graph f of x equals 3x plus 2. So what we do is we pick some x values that we can plug in. They recommend plugging in some negatives and positives. So I just stick around the origin. I'm going to do -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Then I show my work. So I say, okay, I'm going to go plug -2 in. That's how functions work. So we have 3 times -2 plus 2. Isn't that -6 plus 2? So -4. Then I'm going to plug in -1. 3 times -1 plus 2. Isn't that -3 plus 2? Which is -1. Yeah? Help me out so we can go quicker. So we have 3, just because I make errors. 3 times 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 times 1 plus 2 is 5. 3 times 2 plus 2 is it 6, 7, 8? Okay, I'm fixing it. All right, then we would just go plot the points. -2 down 1, 2, 3, 4. Then -1, -1, over 0 up 2, over 1 up 5. Perfect. Over 1 up 5, and then over 2 up 8. And then you connect the dots. Boom, 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 boom. We just graphed a line by plotting points. Wouldn't you agree that, I mean, that's easy, but it's just kind of a pain in the butt to have to put in all the values. So if they use the words graph by plotting points, you have to do this. But let's graph it the easy way. So the easy way is when you use just your slope-intercept form and do a direct translation of what we're looking at. So that's when we do y-intercept. We start with our y-intercept, and then we do our slope, which is rise over run. Now, how many of you memorize slope as rise over run? We're going to re-memorize it. It's actually not always rise. So I would write this down. I wish your teachers would have taught you like this, because then it would make it less confusing. So many kids, when they're back learning this in like 8th grade or whenever you learn it, they do always rise, but that's wrong. So, I mean, it's not wrong, but you have to, it overcomplicates it. So here's the thing. Positive numbers rise, but negative numbers fall. You rise or fall. So if it's positive, we're going to rise. If it's negative, we're going to fall. And then our run is always, listen to what I'm saying, our run is always to the right. Always run to the right. This will help you get started and draw your line correctly. Always run to the right. Okay, so let's just now do an example. So once again, though, we know B is where we start. It's called an initial value for a reason because that's where it crosses the y-axis. So that's the easiest point to find. All right, so let me graph this one, and you probably should just watch. So we're going to graph this. So our y-intercept is +5. So I go up to +5 and put my first point. Then I say to myself, the slope is -2/3. So it's not rise over run, it's fall over run. So we actually need to go down 2 units, and then you always go to the right for run. 1, 2, 3, put a dot. So we're going to fall 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 2, over 1, 2, 3. And then 4 points is enough to draw a pretty good line. Ding, 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 ding. Any questions on that? All right, now ask yourself, does my answer look right? Is this a negative sloped line? You will always do it right if you do the rise or fall thing, and then always run to the right. Okay, so let's practice another one and answer it how it will look on the homework. It says, given this equation, what's the slope? You tell me. It's -1. Can't we think of that as -1 over 1 if it's convenient? Yes? Okay. The y-intercept is 0, -2. So now it says graph. So you'd go down to -2 and start there. And then are we rising or falling? We drop 1 to the right 1. Drop 1 to the right 1. Drop 1 to the right 1. Enough points. I'm good to go. All right. Do we need to do another one or do you feel good? Okay, then let's move on. Okay, what's the equation? Let's make sure we got it. What's the equation to this line right here, this blue line? It's either y equals or x equals. Y always equals -2, so that's the one we pick. You're right. We could also say f of x equals -2. We know that y and f of x are the same thing. Right here, it's x equals, isn't it? What does x equal every time right there? Yes, look at the x's. What do they always equal? 3. -3. Ding, 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 ding. Then somebody last hour pointed out, so you couldn't write that one as f of x. You're right. F of x is y, so you can't write f of x equals -3. All right, awesome. We're almost done. So if you see this on the test, don't be the person that misses it. It says graph f of x equals 4. That's y equals 4. You'd go up to 4 on the y-axis, and you'd go across horizontally. Draw x equals -1. You'd go to -1 on the x-axis, and then it's a vertical line. This is considered an undefined slope, right? Vertical lines are undefined slopes. Horizontal lines are 0 slopes. All right, so just a friendly reminder. Parallel lines have the exact same slope. They won't have the same y-intercept. They'll have different y-intercepts, but they have the same slope. See, 2, 2, 2. So we know for sure those lines are parallel. Recall, perpendicular lines cross at a 90-degree angle, because there are times when lines don't cross at a 90-degree angle, but if they do cross at a 90-degree angle, then their slopes will be opposite, meaning one will be positive, one will be negative. And then they will be reciprocated fractions. So 3 is the same thing as 3 divided by 1. So reciprocate that and we get 1/3. So these are considered perpendicular lines. So we practiced this last time, so most of you probably won't want me to do it. So let's just see what you think. If they ask you on the test, are these parallel lines? What do I recommend doing so that you don't get tricked? Actually find the slope. So you'd pick 2 points, yes? Pick 2 whole number points and see what the slope is. Then pick 2 points on the green. Doesn't matter which 2 points you pick. See what the slope is, compare them. If they're the same, it's parallel. If they're not exactly the same, then they're not parallel. So I won't do that one. It's too easy. We'll get the picture. And once again, let's just verbalize it for our video. So to check if these are perpendicular, you would find the slope between a point and another point. Yes? And then you would also check that against the slope of the other line. For them to be perpendicular, one has to be positive, one has to be negative, and they have to be reciprocated. The fraction has to be flipped. All right, now watch this one because last hour I went over this and then still people were like getting themselves stuck on the homework. It says, graph the equations and state whether the resulting lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So notice the first equation is 3y equals -4x plus 3. I never try to graph it leaving it like this. I like to do the y-intercept and slope. So I always get mine into y equals mx plus b. Right now there's a 3 attached to y. We need it to be y equals. So wouldn't you agree mathematically I can choose to divide both sides by 3? So then look, 3's divide out, we get y equals. Now be smarter than the problem with me. I'm going to separate this out. This is the same thing as -4 divided by 3x, yes? And then what's 3 divided by 3? This is my first line. So I can graph that by going up 1, and then I fall 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to do those 2 points and draw a rough sketch here. Let's do the other one. The other one started out as 3x minus 4y equals 8. Get it into y equals format. So tell me what to do first. Almost. Try again. Nope. Say it again. Yeah, we subtract 3x. Now look, don't write it in that order. That order is not mx plus b. So we have negative 4y. We know we can reorder this. That's negative 3x plus 8, correct? Now we'll divide both sides by negative 4. And once again, just be smarter than the problem. Be careful. What's negative 3 divided by negative 4? 3/4. We don't do decimals. We do fractions. 3/4. Does everybody understand why it's positive 3/4? So we'd say 3/4 x, and then positive 8 divided by negative 4? Minus 2. So then I'd go down to negative 2, and then I would rise 1, 2, 3, and run 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't tell if lines are perpendicular based on a graph. You need to look at the actual slopes. Compare this slope to this slope. Are they perpendicular lines? We should all very confidently say, yes, one's positive, one's negative. And are they reciprocated?
Yes.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's the end of those lessons. Now we just have 2.3, which is really straightforward as well. So you'll do these ones on the homework, and now we'll do 2.3. Stick with me through 2.3. It's the same stuff, so let's just roll with it. Now they just give you more information here. So these are just more advanced. Watch and listen. We'll just do examples. It says f of x is a linear function, and these points are points on the graph. Find the slope of the graph of the line, and is the graph of this function increasing, decreasing, or neither? How do we find slope between 2 points? Subtract the y's, 1 minus negative 2, divided by subtract the x's. Way to remember, 8 minus 3. It looks like the slope on this one is 3 over 5. 3/5 is the slope. Will that be an increasing, decreasing, or neither line? It's a positive slope, so we know it's increasing. All right, let's move on. So it says right here, a gym charges a membership fee and a fixed monthly amount. Fixed monthly amount. Because they use the word fixed, that means every month they charge this exact same thing. So that's a linear pattern. So it says for 3 months, the cost is $110. And then at 8 months, the cost is $210. Because it's linear, it doesn't matter which 2 points. Can't we find the rate of change? Yes? So we would find the slope by doing subtract your y's divided by subtract your x's. And it comes out to be, let's say, $20. So we know that that means every month we're getting charged $20 consistently, always. That's just the fixed part. Everybody see? All right. Now, I need you guys to really focus. I'm almost done. I just need a couple more seconds of your time, but you need to watch. So it says, find the function whose graph is aligned with this information. So they have a line with a slope of 4 and this as the y-intercept. So what would be the answer? Y equals 4x plus 8. If they give you the y-intercept, this doesn't take any extra math. You just straightforward do it. So this one would be y equals 4/3 x minus 5, right, everyone? So those are really easy. But here's the problem. What if they give you something like this? Find a function whose graph is aligned with a slope of 3/4 that passes through this point. Does everybody agree this is not the y-intercept? Okay, then this one's going to take a little bit more math. This wouldn't be a bad one to write down the first time when you see it. So you would say to yourself, okay, we know we're going to start out with what we do know. We know lines have the form y equals mx plus b. Let's put in everything we know. We know our slope is 3/4. So let's start there. I always start with slope personally. So I go like this. 3/4 x plus b. Now from here, you need plus b. This is what we need. Now, if you look at this, though, right now, this is 1, 2, 3 unknowns. Would you guys agree? We have 3 unknowns right there. But the good news is we're not left in the dark because what do we have right here? X and y. So do we really have 3 unknowns? No, we only have 1 unknown, and it's the unknown we need. We need b. So now you have to use math and go plug in x and y to find b. So watch, I go plug in y where y is. So that would be 1 equals 3/4 x. So we're timesing by x. Isn't that times by -3? And then plus b. And everybody really focus because this was blowing their minds last hour. We're trying to solve for b. That's the only unknown. So let's show our work. We have 1 equals. How do you multiply fractions? Say it again, sorry.
No. Do you divide them?
Nope. But I like that you're trying. Yeah, you just put a 1 under and you multiply straight across. Fractions get multiplied straight across. So then that is -9 divided by 4. Then we have plus b. Now math is math. How do you get b by itself? Add 9/4. Add 9/4. So we have 1 plus 9/4 equals b. We can't leave the answer like that. We don't write mixed numbers. We need to actually combine those. So now we have to remember back to 4th grade math. How do we add fractions? We have to have a common denominator. So what I recommend is writing a 1 in this position, in this denominator, so you don't make any errors. The common denominator must be 4. So I'm going to times by 4 to the bottom and to the top. So now look at what this looks like. This is 4/4 plus 9/4. Everyone, when adding fractions, we add the numerator only. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13/4. We just got b is 13/4. So now we'll write our final answer. Y equals our slope was 3/4, wasn't it? And then x and then plus b. The b is 13/4. So we'll say plus 13/4. That one just came out with fractions. They don't always come out with fractions. Let's do another one to make sure you really get this in your head. Because if you're missing that one on the test, you're going to be kicking yourself. Because that's not hard, right? It's just you have to know how to add fractions. You have to know how to multiply fractions. All right, look at this next example. See, if you see it more than once, it helps. So it says, find the function whose graph has a line with this slope and passes through this point. So you'd say, y equals -3x plus b. Now look, this is not the y-intercept. So what do? We plug in the x and the y's. This is x, this is y. So watch. I'd say -5 equals -3 times 4 plus b. Now, if you're like, I can do that in my head, you're going to be that person that misses this problem because you did it in your head. It's easy to mess up. So just write it out. Force yourself to write it out. That's -5 equals -12 plus b. True? Get b by itself. Add 12. So now we have 7 equals b. Whoop, there it is. Y equals -3x plus 7. What are your questions on that? Okay, just similar idea here. Now just one extra step. I honestly feel like they would probably just put one like this on the test because then they don't even have to ask you find the slope as a separate problem. They don't have to ask you to write the equation of a line because it tests everything in this problem. See, it says, find a function whose graph is a line that passes through these points. So you'd say to yourself, they want a line, so that's y equals mx plus b. Always start with finding the slope. Sometimes the slope is given. In this one is the slope given, but we know how to find it. Subtract the y values. Divide it by, subtract the x values. So then we're getting -7 divided by 7, which is -1. So then you'd say to yourself, so far I have y equals -1x plus b. Now you'd say, do I have the plus b? Is any of those x's 0? No. So now what do? We plug in x and y, right? Now if you're like, well, there's 2 x and y's. Yep, great. So you have 2 choices. Pick one, you'll get the same answer. If it's on the same line, it doesn't matter. Plus b will solve correctly. I'm randomly picking this point. So I would say 5 equals -1 times -3 plus b. So I have 5 equals 3 plus b, subtract 3. 2 equals b, so the final answer is y equals -1x. I'm just going to write -x and then plus 2. Whoop, there it is. So it's the exact same problem we just did, right? We just had to find slope. Okay, now what did they use the words parallel, perpendicular? Like, read this one with me. I only have 2 more examples and I'll let you work on homework. It says, find the function that is represented by a line that passes through this point and runs parallel to this line. So you would say to yourself, they want an equation of a line. That's y equals mx plus b. Always start with the slope. What is our slope? It's 3. They told you it's parallel to that line. What do we know about our slope then? It's the same. So you'd say it must be 3x plus b. Then ask yourself, is the plus b given? Nope, it's not x equals 0. So how do we find b? We just did it 3 billion times. Plug it in for x and y. So we'll say negative 2 equals 3 times 4 plus b. That's negative 2 equals 12 plus b. Subtract 12, unless I messed up. Did I mess up? Looking good, looking good. So we have negative 14 equals b. So your final answer is y equals 3x minus 14. What are your questions on that? So the only thing they're doing is seeing if you understand that parallel lines have the same slope. Aren't they giving you the slope essentially there? Okay, so what did they say perpendicular? Let's just do one that's perpendicular and then we're done. Determine the function that is represented by a line that passes through this point and runs perpendicular to this line. So you'd say lines have y equals mx plus b. I always start with slope. Our slope is what value compared to this? If we put 4, it'll be a parallel line. This one's perpendicular. So what do we put as our slope? Negative, say it again. Yep, negative 1/4. We got to reciprocate it as well. Does everybody agree? And then we put our x plus b. Then you'd say the y-intercept, nope, not given. So I'm just going to use algebra to find it. I'll plug that in for x and y. So we have negative 3 equals negative 1/4 times negative 1 plus b. So then I have negative 3 equals, don't I multiply straight across? So that would be positive 1/4 plus b. So then I would subtract 1/4. We don't get freaked out by adding and subtracting fractions. Negative 3 minus 1/4. We write a 1 under the denominator of 3. We times by 4 times by 4. That's negative 12/4 minus 1/4, which is negative 13/4. So then you would say my answer is y equals negative 1/4 x minus 13/4. Okay, you got this. So you're going to go do 2.2.1, 2.2.2, and 2.3. You got this. You're awesome. Go for it.